Are we? All right.
Sorry.
Well, welcome everyone to another episode of Movies with Mark. I am Mark McPherson, movie critic for Moviespoon.com, TwinCitiesGeek.com, and MoviesWithMark.com. I'm joined here by my lovely wife on her channel Vision Goo, where she draws and paints. That's Kat. She doesn't have her own Twitch channel, so she's borrowing ours to meow at it, as she does.
Has a lot to say.
Pet's got to find a Twitch somehow, you know.
Well, she already ate too, so she's just walking around complaining.
Yeah, that's what they do.
She just says, "I'm old."
I'm old, as you do with cats. So on today's episode, we are going to have three movie reviews here. Latest films of Wrinkle in Time, the latest fantasy from Ava DuVernay. Yeah.
I need to
And-
picture this picture so that I can post it on Instagram.
Okay. Man,
Wow.
you just keep talking, don't you? So we're gonna be
Everyone
reviewing.
wants to interrupt your shit.
I guess so. No one wants to talk about these movies, I guess. Yes.
Oh, now she's got. She wants us to sit on the
What
couch.
is it? Well, I ain't
She
doing
wants us
this.
to sit on the couch.
I ain't going over there. You come over here. You can talk.
Come over here, kitty.
Is there a cat? New pixie? Yes, there is a cat. She will be
Yeah.
appearing later.
Yeah, she wants Mark to come sit by her, and it's specifically Mark because she keeps looking at him.
Well,
And now she's looking at the dog. She's pissed off at the dog.
so we're going to be viewing the new fantasy film Wrinkle in Time, the adult drama Submission starring Stanley Tucci, and Duncan Jones' new sci-fi noir film on Netflix called Mute. So we'll start off. We'll start off right from the beginning with the big film of the weekend, Wrinkle in Time, directed by Ava DuVernay, who has directed films like Selma and The 13th. And she's been wanting to get into doing sort of like bigger fantasy films. Like I think at one point she was considered for doing Black Panther. And I think she might have passed on that to do this Wrinkle in Time here. And I could kind of understand why she wanted to do it because it's a type of film that, you know, it's a fantasy meant for young kids. You know, it's the main character is Meg. She's a teenager who's kind of, you know, she's got glasses. She's not the most popular kid in school. The popular girls all look down on her and everything. And her dad mysteriously disappeared about 4 years ago. Her dad is played by Chris Pine, and she's trying to figure out like, well, what happened to my dad? Well, my dad was researching some scientific formula to bend space-time to get across the universe. So maybe that might come into play sometime. We suspect. But what's weird is that, you know, of course, you know, she needs adventure to, you know, build herself up with self-esteem. And it happens so quickly that it just like, it feels like everything is kind of like, it feels like, you know, you have like a thick book and you're trying to fit it into under 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be like, you know, for context, let's say you were going to take like the Half-Blood Prince and you had to film it in 100 minutes. It's kind of like that. So
Well,
obviously,
they really mocked up the Half-Blood Prince. Maybe that's a bad comparison.
well, I'm just thinking of that because that's like such a thick book, and
Well, that's very thick.
yeah, and I haven't read.
And they did cut out massive parts of it.
That's what it kind of feels like here, though. Is like I've never read the book before, but it feels like it was massive because they cut out. It feels like there's a lot of stuff cut out here because when we eventually get to the whole like space-time bending thing, they reveal that there's these three astral travelers who are going to help her. One's played by Reese Witherspoon, who's doing her best job to act as like what's her name, like Giselle from Enchanted.
Oh, this is the movie that Oprah's in, right?
Yes, and Oprah is one of them as well.
And
Who
she looks weird.
well
Weird.
they all look weird, but she looks the weirdest because when she first shows up, she's a giant. Like she's literally towering over everyone, just looking down on them. And it gets so ridiculous. Like she remains that way for about like a third of the film. And there's one point where they're flying through the air and one of the kids caresses her huge face.
That sounds creepy.
It is pretty creepy and weird. But I get the feeling that's what they were trying to go for with the surrealism of it. Which I could have embraced, but the film is in such a rush to get through all of it that you know, like we don't spend a lot of time, that we don't really introduce these characters. They just kind of plop in there. In fact, they're so plopped in there that Meg's brother, who's called I think he's called like Charles Wallace. And he keeps saying that every time. Like when he gets lost in the woods, like Charles Wallace, Charles Wallace.
It just makes me think of shoot, now I can't remember the name.
What?
The Tarantino film.
Which
There's
one?
someone with the last name Wallace, and they say his name. They
Oh,
always say
Pulp
his
Fiction.
first and last name in Pulp
Yep.
Fiction.
No one F's with Mrs. Wallace except Mr. Wallace. You know?
Yeah, but whenever they say his full, they say his full name like a whole bunch of times, don't they?
Oh, Marcellus Wallace. Yeah.
I don't know.
Charles Wallace, he's supposed to be the more like Meg's intelligent younger brother.
Oh, wait a minute. So, A Wrinkle in Time is a remake then?
It's based on a book, but there has been other films before it.
Okay, because Nooble Pixel and just Nooble Pixel says that there's a 2003 movie with that a bunch of same pacing problems.
Yeah, I've seen that before, and yeah, this is very much the same way. It felt like there might be a director's cut, just because there's so many scenes that are unexplained. Like when we get to these astral travelers, Charles Wallace just kind of knows about them. Just kind of like, oh yeah, this is
completely normal.
this is Mrs. Whatsit, this is Mrs. Who, and this is Mrs. Which. Yeah, you know them. Come on, get with the program. We got to get the plot going here. Come on.
Was it better in the book? Oh, you say you didn't read the book.
I haven't read the book.
Did anyone read the book?
But
has anyone come prepared to class today?
But I guess like I'm sure the book is probably like fun to read, but it's one of those things where it's like the story feels just kind of bland and middle of the road, mainly because these astral travelers, their names are Mrs. Which, Mrs. Who, played
Mrs.
by
Which.
Yeah, so we can make some jokes like who, which, and
is that why you put that in there?
Yeah, and they make that joke right away, just to get that right in there.
I was just thinking about that sort of joke today, where it's like, who's playing? Yes, the Who.
Yep.
The Who, you know, it's
Mrs. Who.
Such an annoying joke. It's just like, yes, we get it. It's a verb.
Well, the only thing more annoying
it's a thing
than Mrs. Who is the fact that is like Mrs. Who is like she's played by Mindy Kaling, and her whole gimmick is she only speaks in Earth quotes. So
Earth quotes?
So she'll only speak with quotes from history and then state who said it and from what part of the world. Like that's her whole gimmick. And it goes on for so long that even the character gets tired of it and just drops it at one point.
That sounds really stupid.
I mean, it's kind of silly for like one or two scenes because you can tell they're really trying to force some chemistry between these three characters who, by the way, like, man, if you want like cosplay ideas, they change their outfit like every other scene. Mm-hmm. Like at one point, Oprah's got like Super Saiyan hair or whatever, and the next scene she's got like braids going down. And
Moisen is asking if there's a strong comparison to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I'm not sure how you mean in the actual story, or do you mean in the adaptation?
I think they mean an adaptation.
Like it's poorly adapted?
Yeah,
I haven't read the book.
Like they're trying to cram in so much.
Watched the movie. Honestly, he watched the movie.
And that, like, I think they're trying to cram in like so much here.
Yeah.
And that you get the feeling like I'm not really grasping this. But at the same time, you know, with stuff like Mrs. Which and Mrs. Who, you feel like it's not that. It can't be that like great writing, especially since the villain they gotta fight is apparently a form of, or like a realm called the Darkness.
The Dark.
And get this, the main villain is the It. The It.
So they're just stealing from random horror movies now? I'm confused.
Well, I think the biggest problem with this film, I think that most people say, is that it tries way too hard to force in its themes about, you know, trying to build up your self-esteem. Like the character of Meg, she has to be told constantly by these astral travelers that, you know, like you can be a warrior, you can be a hero, you can be the best, you just have to have faith in yourself. And it gets to the point where it goes on so long, you kind of feel like, you know, the kid might be awkward, like, you know, when you're at a ball game and your parents are cheering you on from the stands, just like, oh God, okay, just, yeah, I get it, you're encouraging, you're loving me, but this is a little much. And they really go overboard when they keep saying like, oh, you're gonna be a warrior. What she does by the end is not quite what a warrior would do. And they really force in this theme about, you know, how you got to be yourself and how you got to love yourself, and they
Is this
really
some
push
kind
it.
of forced bullshit girl power movie? Because I hate that kind of pandering.
At times it really is. And the thing is,
I don't know. The trailer made me cringe, but couldn't tell you a whole lot more than that Oprah looked really weird in it.
yeah.
To me.
Well, there's a lot of weirdness in it, and I could love the film on that angle.
Yeah.
And if it wanted to go for
Not
this,
weird, but
yeah,
certain kinds of weird.
and if it really wanted to go for this whole kind of you know, love will save the day and we can defeat darkness like that, I would be okay with that if they worked towards it.
Love will save the day.
Because like,
As
I
we
hope
hammer
it's.
it over your head.
I hope it's not like too much of a spoiler, but it's kind of similar to how Moana's climax was, except they don't really like build up much to it, because
It's not who you are. I know who you are.
defeat the villain with love.
Was
Because
it really love that defeated the villain in Moana, though?
well, understanding, I guess,
Yeah,
more than
I'd
that.
say that'd be more accurate.
Love and understanding, which can do well if you build it up and you work at it. But the ending comes like so out of left field, because at one point Charles Wallace gets possessed by the It, and she has to like defeat it with love, which I would be okay with if there was some more dynamic between the brother and the sister, but there isn't. So this whole thing of like, I love you, Charles Wallace, it's like, you didn't love him before? I'm pretty sure you did throughout most of the film.
You
Where
sure
is
it was
this
her brother?
or it's either her brother or like her half brother, I think. They kind of established their relationship. Like they show that, you know, he was born between, you know, Chris Pine and Meg's mother, so they kind of established that. But also they kind of forget about Chris Pine's character. Like he's at the beginning of the film, and then they forget about him until like the very end when they got to pick him up.
I don't know. What do you think about Chris Pine as an actor?
I think he can work if you give him the right material.
Because, like, well, I thought actually he did really well in Into the Woods, but it was because it's kind of like James Kirk in Star Trek, where the character is full of himself.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like how Shatner is just kind of, you know, that kind of acting style where it's not like it's good.
But it's kind of like...
But it's in character.
Yeah, like kind of like scenery chewing more, you're type thinking.
Yeah, well, it's just like, is there a good way to put that they look like they're full of themselves? I don't know.
Yeah, just, you know, they're good at playing like kind of egotistical characters.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, yeah, Kirk was entirely
Did he
egotistical.
do that in this movie, too?
He has, well, he's kind of like, you know, that scientist who realized, like, you know, oh, I was a fool, I should have paid attention to my family.
He's a fool.
Which is a good angle. I mean, it works for his character. It's just, we don't get a lot of that. We see a brief glimpse of him at the beginning, and then at the end he has to do this admittance of like, I was wrong to screw over my family like that. Now, if we saw like
Screw you, family.
If we saw bits and pieces of him throughout there, like, it kind of looked like in the trailer there was more. There was more with him, like, going mad in this other world where he didn't have control over everything, and he was separated from his family.
But hey, there was more with the Joker and Suicide Squad, and that wouldn't have saved that movie.
Yeah, but the Joker was forced in there as just kind of a thing. This is like the central plot is like she's going to find her dad at the edge of the universe.
You kind of wonder though, like, sometimes with books they just cut parts out because they want to stick to one message.
Yeah.
It's like you brought up the Half-Blood Prince, so I feel like I can go with that comparison.
Yeah, that's good.
And the Half-Blood Prince, a lot of it involved Voldemort's backstory.
Mm-hmm.
And they cut most of it, except for maybe 2 scenes.
Yeah.
To focus on, like, the worst part of the book, which was teen romance.
Yeah.
But you know what? Twilight came out that year, so they had to compete.
Yeah.
Consider, is there perhaps a slant that this movie is going for, that they might cut out certain characters to focus on, like, maybe one character?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well,
So,
well, the
just
entire
a thought. I'm not trying to get like political on you or
no,
anything.
no, no.
Just
There
posing the question.
there seems to be a little bit of a battle between like the director Ava DuVernay, likes to do films about black protagonists who are kind of held up there, and then you have the script is written by Jennifer Lee, who
Mm-hmm.
wrote and co-directed Frozen. And I get the feeling like Jennifer Lee went into this trying to build it more like a fantasy angle
Mm-hmm.
and to empower girls. And I think she kind of had that in her script. And then I think maybe Ava DuVernay came in and said, "We got to punch it up higher." Like she's
I
fearing that
see.
that kids might not quite grasp the message that if you stop being down on yourself, you can actually do stuff. To the point where it's like it's so forced. I have expected her to just like jump out of the screen, and just like have faith in yourself already.
Yeah, the way you're putting it though, is like if she doesn't get that through it, it's like what is she doing? Sitting around like being like sitting on the sofa. I can't do it. You do it
Yeah.
for me. Have faith in yourself.
No, she's just kind of like down, like like my dad's gone. I don't have any faith in the world at this point. I'd rather be someone else. That kind of deal.
Mm,
Like she gets into fights at school. She doesn't really socialize with anyone. She's shot like she has a crush at school, but she's so embarrassed to be seen around him and all that. She's just kind of got to get over this stuff.
yeah,
And
teenage stuff then.
yeah, but the thing is, like, that would be cool on her journey if she got kicked down holes and had to find her way out of there. But the thing is, for like half the journey, she's mostly just guided by the astral travelers who kind of help her along the way, saying like, "Oh, don't worry, everything will be fine. Just build yourself up. Just you'll be the hero. You'll be the warrior." They keep saying warrior a lot in this film too.
Huh.
So-
Nah, I think maybe it struggles from keeping the mentors on too long or something. I don't know.
Well, thankfully they kick them out
Okay.
about halfway through once they actually get to the realm of the darkness. And they say
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh, we can't go any further. So here's like some fortune cookie logic for you, and
Oh,
go,
okay.
go off with your." She goes along with her with Charles Wallace and her crush on
I
this.
see that this is a Disney movie. Did you
Mhm.
actually see this in theaters, or was this a made-for-TV thing?
No, no, no. This is in theaters, and
Because, like, I don't know, the poster is giving me that kind of TV vibe.
kind of a little
Just
bit.
saying, like, because I've seen my fair share of made-for-TV Disney stuff,
Mhm.
and I mean, just because Oprah's in it wouldn't mean it was big screen. I mean,
Well-
Hocus Pocus ended up being big screen, but it originally was made for TV, and it shows.
Yeah, but this,
You know?
well, this they spent about $100 million for this, and we saw this in
Okay.
IMAX, and they did put a lot of effort into the visual effects. So much
Oh,
so.
okay.
So much so that once they get to like the first world that they travel to, which is this lush green pastures of
Oh, that sounds
like
nice.
like big green pastures. There's talking flowers, there's swirling clouds, and there's kind of like a mix between like a manta ray and a fairy that zooms around the place.
Well, at least that sounds interesting.
It is
Then
interesting.
maybe
Yeah.
they just didn't take the source material in quite the best direction, or maybe the scenery is better than the source material. It's hard to say, having
There's-
seen the movie myself or read the book. So
Well, there's definitely a distance between the themes and the visuals.
yeah,
Because like when we get to that first world, the characters just kind of frolic around the field just because the astral travelers are like, "Hey, this field's pretty cool. Why don't you go play in it?"
oh
I get the feeling like they're just saying like, "Look, we spent $100 million on these visual effects, and you will enjoy them. So you
Yeah.
will frolic through that field.
Disney dumped all their money on that, huh?
You will jump on that manta ray dragon, and you will ride it, and you will have fun.
It's like,
This is
come
a
on.
fun fantasy film for the family."
Someone wants to see our reaction to a video.
Um,
Oh shoot! I just noticed that we didn't turn off our sound for the for our thing though.
Oh, for the
for the streaming app. Hopefully, people weren't hearing echoes. So,
oh, okay. No, it should be okay.
um,
What's the video?
hot food, kids' poems and stories with Michael Rosen.
Oh, no, Michael Rosen thing. I'll save that for the end. We'll talk about that later.
Okay, I got it open.
Okay, yeah, we'll get to that in a little bit. But I'll just say, like, I mean, I did like the visuals of this film. Like
Mm-hmm.
the theme, the message is positive and all that, but it's forcing so much of this theme to the point where there's not really a lot of chemistry between the characters, and I didn't really care if Meg got held up by the end because there wasn't much of a struggle for her because she's got a lot of help here, and especially because there's a lot of contrast between the visuals in that. Like there's like the scene of the astral the green pasture was really cool, but then once they
Mm-hmm.
get to the darkness, they're in like the wheat field,
Oh.
like the same wheat field from like Tomorrowland.
So, Pixel says that the source material has strong religious undertones, and they're not sure if the movie did the same or wanted to, and maybe that's part of the continuity problems.
That might be because honestly, if it tried to take kind of like a more spiritual level, I think it would. But this is going more from kind of like the it kind of feels more like just kind of like a PSA at times, saying like oh, you know, be the hero, be the hero that you want to be. Where it kind of almost feels like a commercial with how blatant it is about getting this message through, that you don't feel as much through it. So I get the feeling that Ava DuVernay went through this film specifically to hold up to say like, look, girls, you can be the hero, and that became like the entire central focus on it. More than the characters, more than the visual effects, more than the themes. And it got to a point where I really don't care about it. I'm just kind of like watching the visual effects and like, yeah, this is pretty cool. Let's see, yeah, proves Ava DuVernay can shoot some pretty neat stuff to look at. But
Hydra King and Nope are still talking about this Michael Rosen guy.
Oh, Michael.
Do you know what Michael Rosen? I'm not familiar with that. I'm assuming you.
It's been a long time
little
since
bit
I've
more
seen
savvy
Michael
than me.
Rosen videos, but yeah. So I will say, like, I mean, like kids dug the film. Like when I came out of there, a lot of kids were going like, "Oh, I really like that. I like the cool part where they went to the pasture and they fought the darkness and stuff like that." So yeah, kids will dig it. I think as a first fantasy film, it'll be fine. But I get the feeling that once they go back and watch stuff, kind of like Labyrinth or
Yeah.
Goonies or Dark Crystal, they'll find much better writing in there than kind of like the more like beat you over the head message that this
What do
film
you
has.
think our daughter would think of this sort of thing, being that she's seen those older movies? Well, she hasn't seen Goonies. But...
I think she'd dig it. I don't know how much she'd want to watch it again because again, the biggest appeal here is the visuals because there's a lot of attempts at chemistry and humor here. Like at one point they see like an all-knowing seer of the universe played by Zach Galifianakis. And even he feels a little toned down for this, where they're not really giving him a lot to have. You can tell they're
He could
trying.
be a pretty funny dude, so...
Oh yeah, and you can tell he's trying to make jokes here,
Jim Henson is win.
but there's not much room for it. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say like, you know, it's a decent fantasy for kids, but there's not really a lot of here for adults, especially if you're familiar with, you know, stuff like Labyrinth and better fantasies that are better at kicking teenagers down a hole and watching them climb out and be inspired by them. So
Pixel said that there are 5 books. There are 5 books in that,
oh, of course,
and it's just like
of course there
based off
is.
it might spawn a sequel. I don't know.
I don't know how well it'll.
I have heard one other half a review of this, and it wasn't good. So.
Yeah, I've read through a few other reviews, and a lot of people are very very mixed on it. Like even the positive reviews are just kind of like, yeah, it's got a good message, but man, it's a mess. Especially in editing too. It's you can tell they deleted a lot of scenes along the way. So yeah, it's a bit of a mess. I mean, I wish I could like this film because I want kids to have more crazy fantasy stuff. Especially since, you know, like we have a daughter who loves Labyrinth and Dark Crystal.
Yes.
I would love to have more films like that.
She loves fantasy and horror, and there's not nearly enough of it.
Yeah,
So-
and if you're desperate for that stuff, I would say, yeah, take your kids. They'll dig it, but it's just not up to snuff.
Yeah.
So, you know, take her you get, you know, middle of the road review for that. So.
Kind of looks like, it sounds like it's more for preteens or
Oh, entirely.
teens
Yeah.
than anything, because to identify with the character or something and what they're going through, I think you would
Oh, yeah.
kind of have to be a teenager or close to it.
Well,
right?
it's especially if you're kind of like the unpopular, you know, black girl at school doesn't have a dad. This will directly appeal to you because that's
you know, I
the
think
themes
a
of the
lot
character.
of like teenage girls, I think it's really easy as a teenage girl to feel, you know,
Yeah.
left out or like you're a loser or something.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
But maybe that's just because I was a loser in high school. So.
Yeah. Well, it's relatable, because there's always like someone else who looks down on you and someone else who, you feel left out. So yeah, I think for kids it'll be fine. I think it's my only problem is just like it feels more clinical than a story. It feels like you have to see this if you have a self-esteem issue, as opposed to just like a story that you could take as it is as like a grand fantasy.
They weren't as interested in making a good story, perhaps.
Yeah. It would be like watching Labyrinth if the entire time during Labyrinth they just kept saying, like
you need to grow up. You need to grow up, because that was basically the message of Labyrinth.
Well, not even like you need to grow up. Saying like oh, if you just keep working at it, you'll grow up and you'll mature. Like what was the name of the troll who kept following the whole time?
Troll?
The little,
he wasn't a troll, he was a goblin.
Oh, the goblin, yeah.
Hoggle.
Yeah, like if Hoggle could say like, oh, don't worry, you'll grow up at your own pace, at your own time, and he just keeps saying that the whole time.
You need to become more mature, Cyril.
You just need to become more mature, because that's the theme of the film.
Yeah, okay.
So
they were too heavy-handed in their message then.
Yeah. It gets, I will say though, it reached like a breaking point for me when they got to the point where saying like, oh, like you are now a warrior of the greatest heroes in history, like Oscar Schindler and Gandhi. It's like whoa.
What did she do that made her this grand warrior?
She went up to the evilness of the universe and said, I love my brother. And that apparently puts you on the same level as Gandhi.
Dumb shit.
It's like,
Gandhi's like starved himself.
It's like, okay, let's not get carried away. You're just a teenager and you fought a tendril monster by saying you love your brother. Okay, let's not get too carried away here. Okay, so a little bit of fantasy there. So we'll move on to.
Pixel says that's the religious thing.
Oh, is that it? It's
supposed to be the equivalent of going up to Satan and saying, I love things.
Yeah.
I love Jesus.
I kind of see that.
I don't know, something like that, I guess.
It kind of is. I guess if you look at the
darkness was fought by Jesus. Okay, so maybe it is something to do with that.
Actually, it is kind of, because when she first approaches the darkness, she it tempts her by saying like, look, you could be. Like he shows like a mere version of something. Look, you could be this hot and pretty and popular if you just embrace me. Kind of like a Temptation of Christ type deal.
I get it now. So that makes a little bit more sense to me now.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just like it's just like all that stuff though comes entirely out of left field by the third act. Or, yeah,
so they just didn't set up for it very well, maybe.
No, they don't set up for a lot of this stuff. A lot of the stuff kind of happens that just kind of random, and you just kind of gotta go with it if you want to enjoy it.
Okay.
Should
we move on to submission?
Yeah, so that was the kids' film of the week. Now for an adult film.
Fighting tendril monsters. Now you're too old. What are you talking about? Nope. Is this a game I'm missing?
It was such a bland CGI monster. Just like it's just a mess of black tendrils and motion blurs.
So it's the Slender Man without a face.
Kinda, yeah. Like the Slender Man universe. So anyway, we got the submission starring Stanley Tucci as kind of an over-the-hill author who's become a college professor, and he's kind of disillusioned by the world of writing. He thinks like, oh, I had one good book when I was an author, but now, I've settled down. I had a daughter, and she's grown up, and she's left, and...
Did he only write the one book?
He did, yeah. Yeah,
see, that's your problem. That's why you only have one good book.
Now, he says he's writing another book, but we kind of really don't see it because kind of think like, oh, he's just kind of bullshitting his way through that.
Well, it's like... You can say all sorts of things. Like, I could be saying I'm a painter and then never paint anything just because I've painted things before.
Sure.
But you never get any better. You never do anything unless you keep doing it, especially with writing.
Oh, yeah.
Writing, you just need to keep writing and writing and writing. Not necessarily novels. But you need to write something.
Write something every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Every writer will tell you that. As long as you write something. 1 page or 100.
And I can tell you, Mark's done pretty good at that, because how many books are we up to now, hun? How many have you done?
6, I think.
6.
At this point,
and that's, I don't mean to, like...
toot the horn, or...
Toot a horn, or, like, shame or guilt anybody and compare it to, like, what Mark's been doing, but Mark works full-time. he does other part-time things, he does this, and he's still writing all these books, and we have a small child. So.
And writing these movie reviews
and
somehow.
He does chores and all that too. Yeah, you do movie reviews, you have to go see the movies. Our daughter hates that you go see the movies.
The secret is this.
He doesn't sleep very much.
It's this.
I don't
this
know how he's doing it
look.
because I feel like I'm gonna die if I have as much. If I'm doing the amount of sleep that Mark does. I went to bed at 7:30 last night. That's why I didn't stream yesterday. Nope, probably would have been the only one to watch it though.
Yeah. So the biggest lesson from submission is always write and don't get stuck at a teaching job. So
maybe it's the teaching job that really does it. Maybe that just sucks out your soul and takes all your energy out because they work like 12-hour days.
Oh yeah.
Because I mean they're working technically for however long the kids are there, but then they have all this preparation outside of that. So.
Yeah, because I worked adjunct teaching for a while, and that was just kind of like a kind of a bit of a drain on you to keep working. So.
I have a friend who does childcare, and she was a preschool teacher for a while, and even when she was a lead teacher, she had all sorts of prep that she had to do, and this was for like 4-year-olds. So I mean, it's an intense job.
Yeah. And I mean, Stanley Tucci, he's entirely disillusioned by this too, because he's teaching a creative writing class, whereas his students are writing creepy stories about having sex with dogs and stuff like that.
That is creepy.
So he's just kind of like
not the good kind of creepy in my mind either. Sorry.
No, there's stories about having sex with dogs or like eating raw chicken and stuff like that. It's just kind of like, okay,
I'm curious about the raw chicken thing. Gotta admit.
He's got like
that "Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared" episode where they've just got that whole picnic lunch of all raw chicken that's bleeding, and then those eggs that like something comes out of at the end.
Yeah.
Go watch "Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared," but not right now. After the stream.
Yeah, but so yeah, he's completely disillusioned with writing. I mean, he tries to put on like a chipper demeanor during it. Like he tries to be charming around other people. He goes to dinner parties with people he really doesn't like, and he puts on the charm.
So is he college level or is he high school? What is he doing?
He's college. He's university. You kind of feel that he's been there enough to get like tenure or something or like he's close to tenure, something like that.
I don't think they do tenure anymore. They hire adjuncts so they can get around it.
Yeah, well, he's like seasoned enough in there where enough people know him. And he tries to be charming, but then every now and then he'll have like a little mini explosion of just like his frustrations. Like at one point at the dinner party, they start having a talk about how all our students are too sensitive. They're snowflakes. We got to do something with them.
That sounds accurate for today's academic
climate. But Stanley Tucci's theory, he immediately says like, well, you know what we should do? We should lock them in a room and just scream obscenities at them. Just scream, scream, scream at them, and they're like, what? What do you?
Tucci, go take a chill pill, man.
Yeah, they're kind of like, calm down, man.
Dude, he's a little too angry there, man.
So he's got some stuff bottled up.
Yeah.
And some of that starts to come out.
It's not healthy.
No, and a little bit more of it comes out when he starts reading the works of a female student called Angela, played by Addison Timlin. And she has written this weird story about a student having sex with her teacher. That he kind of digs the writing, that it kind of inspires him. And
it inspires him to have sex with students.
Yeah, and you see where this is going. And it's like, here's the thing though, like, it's partially the writing, he does like the writing, it is inspiring him, but it's also, he is being led on here.
Ooh, she's trying to seduce him.
Yeah, and so you kind of see...
I can't remember what Stanley Tucci looks like. Is he attractive?
Well, you'd mostly kind of know him from roles when he's bald, but I think he actually has hair in this film.
Oh, that's why the posters throw me off, because I think...
Because he's mostly bald
I think I've seen him... Wasn't he in, like, The Devil Wears Prada, and Julie and Julia, a movie we both hated?
He used to be in everything for a while. Like, there was a time where we made a joke saying, like, oh, well, why wouldn't Stanley Tucci be in this film?
Yeah, I think I've only ever seen him bald before. Yeah, I looked up a picture. He's who I think he is. He was in Devil Wears Prada.
He's been in a lot of stuff.
Someone put a random picture in the Google results of Jeff Goldblum and Stanley Tucci.
So yeah, he's been around a long time. You don't kind of reckon. I even didn't recognize him at first because I've
Oh,
never.
yeah, here's a picture of him with the hair on.
Yeah.
Or, wow.
Because he looks so different in that.
It's a blonde wig, too, and I don't think he's naturally blonde. Yep, here's a picture of him when he had hair and it's brown.
Yeah.
And curly.
Yeah, so like I didn't recognize, but I thought he was like kind of like a cross between like Mark Duplass and Mark Strong at one point. Because I thought like, no, that can't be Stanley Tucci. I was like, oh no, it's actually him.
Oh, and he's had gray hair in a movie. Is he in one of the Marvel movies? Is he a Marvel character?
Yeah, Captain America, the first film I think he was in.
Yeah, so in that one he had hair, but it was gray hair.
Yeah.
On the sides.
Yeah.
Maybe a little salt and pepper.
Yeah, so he's been around the block. He's had a few films in there. And the thing is, like, you kind of, I mean, he falls for the obvious trap here. You know, he gets entangled with the female student, and she is kind of leading him on too because, you know, she wants to bring him into the trap because she wants to get a novel published. She wants to do well in class. She wants to be recognized. So she's playing the game here. He's playing the game, and eventually it's not going to work out for Stanley Tucci in the end.
She thinks that she sucks up to him, he's going to take her places or something? Is that what you're saying?
Well, she thinks that if she can just suck up to the teacher and just, getting good with him, that she can, she can make connections, she can do well in class, she can get a book deal.
Meanwhile, teacher's probably sitting there like, I wish I had connections.
Yeah. Now the thing is, like, yeah, he falls for it. It's actually a pretty cool scene once he finally makes the mistake of going up to her dorm room to do the action with her because when it happens
in the dorm room, even
in the dorm room,
it's like the easiest way to get caught.
Oh yeah, and
some people are just stupid.
I think he kind of like willingly walks into it because like eventually
he wants to get caught.
I think he kind of does because like when he brings her back to her dorm room, she's got a new computer and she's like, "Oh, why don't you come up here and help me set it up?" It's like, I don't know anything about computers. Oh, it's fine. You can be moral support. He knows at that point.
She's gonna record him or something.
Well, not at that point actually.
Oh, okay.
Because initially she just brings her up and she has sex with him, but when that happens, like once she's kind of had sex with him, that's kind of like sealed the deal. He's immediately humiliated. Like he breaks a tooth. During it, and she just immediately after that she just kind of like waltzes around her dorm room kind of proud and naked, so like, oh, I printed off my latest chapter, here you go, after like nothing because she's already.
I hope you're not giving away too much of the movie.
No, because like after there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens after that, but what I do like is that how frank this film is with its dialogue. Like it doesn't try to kind of pussyfoot around the issues. When Stanley Tucci's wife finally figures this out, like
he's married in this too. Great. No,
yeah, he's married.
Better.
Well, I mentioned he has a daughter, so.
Oh, you did? I apparently wasn't paying attention. I'm so sorry.
Like when she finds out about it, she has exactly the type of reaction you would expect a woman to have like that.
What?
Like. Yeah, like blunt and angry.
Bleep, 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 expletive, bleep.
And when he has to answer for what he's done, he's blunt about it too. And he's blunt like to the point where he's not saying like, oh, well, I didn't do it. He's kind of like, yeah, I messed up. I screwed up. I did a really stupid thing.
Wow.
And I've ruined my life. And I kind of like that aspect of the film because like the dialogue is very good here. The actors are amazing.
I'm right there with them. Sometimes you just want to ruin your life.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, it makes sense.
It's been a rough week.
It makes sense for this character because like you can tell like he's trying to break out from something here, but he's not quite sure where he wants to go. And I think initially he kind of fears it too because he meets with this editor who says like, "Oh, you should write a memoir, like a saucy memoir. Have you ever done drugs or been abused or did you?"
It's like no, he's completely boring.
It's like
right?
no, I've never done any of that. I want to write novels. I don't want to write like kind of like trashy, tell-all books stuff like that. It's like, well, that would kind of suck.
If you're gonna write a tell-all, though, you kind of have to have something to tell.
That's true.
All about.
So it's kind of sort of a blessing in disguise.
Yes, he can tell about. Screwing around with a student.
That's true.
Which would get him kicked out of the university, though, because that's wrong.
Yeah.
There's a position of, authority that
Yeah.
he's abusing. So.
And I mean, I like that aspect of it. I like the dialogue. I like the actors here. Like Stanley Tucci's wife is played by Kira Sedgwick, and she's amazing for most of the film.
I have to look her up.
And
I recognize the name.
And I just love the whole kind of the writing here of this and like the acting here. The only problem though is like it's kind of hard to root for like a lot of these characters because most of them are coming from this kind of like core nastiness that you can't quite get over. Like you can't quite feel for Stanley Tucci in a lot of these scenes because he's kind of willingly going into this trap. And you don't really feel that much for Angela because you know she's obviously being deceptive and she's just kind of going through the motions of entrapping people and trying to move up in the world. It just leaves an icky taste in your mouth. And I guess the only character that you can wholly like is just Kira Sedgwick, just because she's mostly innocent and she gets in one really good scene where she gets to tell off Stanley Tucci. So those parts of the film I like, but like it's hard to like the film as a whole because you're mostly following Stanley Tucci just kind of like intentionally going down this hill that he knows is going to kill him, but also kind of inviting that he wants it to kill him.
So is he maybe like an anti-hero or a tragic hero if we're going for archetypes?
Possibly, yeah. I think towards the very end of the film, he does kind of become more like the tragic hero that you want him to be. Just because most of the time he's just kind of like screw it attitude about halfway through. Because he goes very blunt towards there, where you kind of like him and you kind of don't. You like the fact that he's he's doing away with pleasantries and he's stopped being charming. And he's just kind of letting it all hang out there. But at the same time, you're just like, it's kind of awkward to see this kind of come out too. So I'm kind of middle of the road. I'm kind of mixed on it. I think I went about 2.5 out of 5 stars. I think it's good for like maybe one watch or like a rent or something like that. If you happen to catch it, it's great. Kira Sedgwick and Stanley Tucci are great in it. But there's not a lot here that I want to come back to and go visit again. So mostly just great acting and solid narrative structure. So it's a pretty decent film. And then finally, we have Duncan Jones' new film, Mute.
I did watch some of this.
You did watch some of this, yeah.
Yes.
And I mainly wanted to watch this because it's a Duncan Jones film. If you don't know Duncan Jones, he's David Bowie's son. And he directed other sci-fi films like Moon and Source Code. And apparently, Mute is supposed to take place in the same world as Moon, at least according to Jones. So
I was just thinking about how David Bowie, his real last name is Jones, and he couldn't go by David Jones because at the time, actually, was David's not his real first name either. I think it's his middle name.
No, yeah.
He couldn't go by his full name because there was another famous person with that name.
Yep.
But then he couldn't go by David Jones either, which is his middle name and his last name, because Davy Jones was really popular at the time.
Yep.
I just think that's funny.
So Duncan's taking back the name, man. It's Jones.
Yeah, well, it's just kind of like Diane Keaton goes by that because someone else had her real name, and so she took, Keaton from Buster Keaton.
Yeah. You take what you can. There.
Yeah, I just think that's interesting, the stage name thing that they have to do to be in like Screen Actors Guild and things like that, and other performers. So. Sorry to digress.
Yeah, but it's pretty cool to see that his son has really taken off as a director.
Oh yeah, totally.
Because Moon is just fantastic to watch, just because it's a one-man performance of Sam Rockwell and kind of talking back and forth with Kevin Spacey as a robot between there.
Yeah, I remember. I do remember now that you brought it up. That was a pretty
freaky film.
Yeah.
A lot of cool
I don't want to give anything away though, because otherwise it's not as interesting.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Mute is kind of like because if you look at like Moon and Source Code, they were kind of like very kind of like simple settings, but like kind of hard science fiction behind it. Mute is kind of like when like the shackles have been taken off. Now you can make an entire sci-fi world of the future.
But like sci-fi is not a big point of any part that I saw of that movie. It's just there.
Yeah, like
It's just the future.
yeah, it's because like essentially yeah, it's science fiction in its setting, but at its core, it's essentially a noir film.
Yeah,
It's
those funny sex robots and stuff in there.
oh yeah,
Just thrown in there.
there's a lot of crazy details. There's
that guy in the weird geisha costume.
there's robot there's robot sex like kind of like robot simulated sex things. There's robot strippers. There's holograms.
I don't know what
There's
the point of a robot stripper would be, but whatever.
I don't either. Like I kind of looked at it like, who's this appealing to in the club?
That same guy who had the robot sex dolls who were having sex with
Apparently,
each other, probably.
Yeah. Apparently, that's the new fetish of the future is watching bare metal. So there you go.
Whatever.
I really like heavy metal. So the central story focuses on Alexander Skarsgård as this kind of like Mennonite, I guess you'd say he is.
Yeah, whatever whatever they have in Europe. That's equivalent to what we have as Amish people, which I think is Mennonites, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's set in like a futuristic Berlin, where like a lot has changed there. There was like some war going on. There's a whole bunch of like soldiers trying to like escape the army there.
I think one of the other primary characters is trying to escape the army as well, right?
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, because that's the current political climate going on there right now, and so there's a lot of different people there. They go back and forth between speaking like English and German.
Except the main character can't talk.
Except the main character can't talk because he had an accident when he was young that damaged his vocal cords, and his family essentially denied the technology to save him.
Yeah.
So he's kind of going around, around the town as kind of like a mute. He works at a bar as a bartender, which is great, because you don't really have to talk. You just got to listen to orders and fulfill them. And he really likes the girl Nikki there, who works at this strip club. She's like, oh, that's my girl. That's who I want to spend the rest of my life with. Unfortunately, things go bad one night. A fight happens, and Nikki's gone missing. And it's like, what happened? He's
gotta find her.
He's gotta find her.
That's what he proceeds to try to do. And I went to bed before and found out, but
yeah. But at the same time, there's also this story of this other soldier who's kind of laying low, who's trying to escape with his daughter.
Yeah.
And that story, without giving too much away, that story does parallel with Alexander Skarsgård's character.
I kind of... you don't need to say what my hypothesis was, but did it prove to be true?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I thought. So.
Not quite to the degree that you thought, but yeah, it essentially happened.
Okay.
Because you can kind of, like, as you start watching, you can kind of start piecing together stuff here. But the one thing I like how Duncan Jones sets this up is he never, like, force feeds you what this setting is. Like, he never outright has like a wall of text explaining what the political climate is.
That's good.
He never
show don't tell.
Yeah, he never like divulges too much into like the history without just kind of like parsing it out. I like the characters they establish here. I like how the person working with the soldier is this kind of like best bud who runs a clinic for cybernetics, but he's also kind of a pedophile, so he's not quite sure to trust him around his daughter.
Yeah, I did notice that part. That stuff is like the stay away.
Oh, and it gets more, without giving too much away.
It gets worse.
It gets creepier towards the end. I'll just say that. So.
When I was going to bed, there was a scene that was mildly creepy. So.
Oh, it gets very creepy towards the end with that. But I like how Duncan Jones sets up this world too. Just the production design. I like how it's tough for the mute character to go through this world because a lot of stuff is like voice activated, so you can't quite get around stuff. Like in order to order food, you got to say your number, so he can't do that either. So he gets other people to help him. Yeah. I like how he tries to kind of like keep kind of like his Mennonite roots going by like carving stuff out of wood in like his garage, and
he needs like that Silvio computer to talk. That's what he should get.
It's surprising though that he wouldn't have some like in this technology. You can have like a little text to speech thing on like his arm.
Nope, just many notebooks.
But again, like
sketchbooks.
Yeah, but
he's a very good artist.
Well, actually, no, they probably do have that, but it's just because, like how he was raised, he's like, I don't really like technology,
He doesn't understand how to use it.
No, he's just kind of like, give me some wood, give me some. Well, no, yeah, because he actually doesn't understand it. Because like when he's first with Nikki, she shows him how to use kind of like the smartphone to record stuff. So he's kind of getting used to this stuff and kind of getting used to his world. And it's kind of fun to follow him as kind of like the everyman character because he's not as used to this world, so we identify with him the most on his journey through all these alleyways and different sex shops and creepy people and mafias and all this crazy stuff.
Definitely some creepy people in this movie.
Yeah, like and every little bit of the set design is amazing, from like the malls to the cars to the bowling alley. They have an elaborate bowling alley. Where,
I missed this part.
Oh my god, there's a scene where they start with the bowling alley and they show like kind of the kind of like glass tubes and everything like that. And they pull back from that and then they go down. There's another bowling alley beneath that. And they go even further down and there's another bowling alley beneath that.
You know what that reminds me of though?
The Simpsons quote.
Yes.
This is where Frank Grimes lives. Put a bowling alley on another
bowling alley.
So just production-wise and from like cinematography, it's amazing to watch.
Oh yeah, it looks really nice. I was really tired, so I didn't finish watching it.
I mean, character-wise, I think it kind of peters out with the character drama towards the end, where it kind of you get the feeling like, okay, I know where this is kind of going here. It probably could have ended maybe a little bit like 5 or 10 minutes ahead because we kind of know what will happen at that point. So I wish I could like more of the noir story, even though it kind of goes down a kind of predictable route towards the end. But like I said, like it's an amazing film to look at, and you know I dig any sci-fi film that wants to go out there and try new crazy stuff like this.
Yeah, no, I dug what I saw. I was too tired to watch the rest of it because I don't remember how late at night we were watching it. I haven't been feeling too well though. So.
Yeah. And I mean, aside from just, you know, how the noir story just kind of settles on itself, it's very tightly directed. Like, there doesn't feel like there's a whole lot of scenes that are just kind of wasting your time. Like, even when we get to, like, the weird kind of sex robots and the geisha stuff, it's still...
That's just background stuff more so.
Yeah, it's still background stuff. Even the scene at the bowling alley, which seems like nothing, it's still revealing a little bit more of the character saying, like, look, like, you're a creep, dude. Don't do this pedophilic crap. It's establishing the boundary there.
Yeah.
So even nothing scenes, even the scene where they celebrate at the mall by going to like the arcade and getting drinks feels like nothing, but it's actually it's building up more of how flawed these characters are and how like so easily they could lose control and be captured by the authorities. So it's tightly directed. I don't think it kind of pains me that this isn't as strong as something like Moon or Source Code. But again, like it's trying to be a different film because like Source Code and Moon, they were trying to have like much heavier themes in there, and this just kind of feels just kind of like straight detective, solid noir type stuff.
I like noir.
So
didn't you say this was in the same universe though as Moon?
As Moon, yeah.
Neat.
Well, it technically cooks like Moon only took place, you know, up on a station on the moon. We didn't really see Earth, so
it's kind of interesting to think about, though.
It is, yeah.
So, what movies are you looking forward to seeing?
Looking forward to seeing. I'm kind of hopeful for Pacific Rim. Pacific Rim 2.
I know you really liked the first one. I like the first one too.
Yeah.
But I know it's kind of like a love it or hate it kind of movie, isn't it?
Oh, definitely.
We loved it, but.
But that's because
we watch sci-fi a lot, so.
That's because I love sci-fi, because I love Mecha and Gundam, so. And
yeah, well, they had a lot of fun characters in that movie too, and I thought they set people up well enough. So
it's definitely kind of like a love it or hate it type film, because I've seen people either just give it, you know, mildly passive ratings like, I didn't really dig it, or this is the best film ever.
Yeah.
Like the reviewer on RogerEbert.com gave it 4 stars. He loved it that much. And I gotta admit, I had a ball with the film. I know a lot of people have issues with it, especially from a logistical standpoint. Like they don't understand how the mechs were using nuclear reactors and how some of them didn't work and how some of them should have blown up, and that didn't make sense in there.
I don't know.
But that's like kind of nitpickery.
About that kind of stuff, so.
But that's mostly like nitpickery for you know a movie about giant robots.
Yeah.
Which tries to be more fun than stupid most of the time.
You've got to know what you're going into, you know?
Yeah.
It's like you don't go into an Avengers movie looking for a really strong plot. Honestly, it's an action movie.
Not as strong. Yeah, like not like a heavy character drama.
You're not looking for. Yeah,
although it would be interesting if they went that route. Just saying, Marvel. Just saying.
I mean, Logan was pretty deep.
I mean, Logan did really well. You know. Yeah. Black Panther had a character who wasn't bland. Just saying. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
Give us a little more there.
Maybe that's part of the reason those movies don't excite me anymore.
Yeah. I'm looking for Pacific Rim in terms of the rest of stuff this month. Ready Player One. I read the
hopeful. We both read that book, right?
Yep.
I really enjoyed the book. That makes me apprehensive about seeing the movie adaptation about it, though.
Yeah.
Because you know how I am about those adaptations. So.
Yeah. But it's a crazy genre picture. It goes nuts with references. It's Steven Spielberg directing.
Spielberg usually does a good job, so.
Oh yeah, I mean, and the thing is, I just want people to be aware, though. It's a Spielberg film, so if you're gonna have a Spielberg film, you are going to have a kind of action chase sequence. It happens, everyone. It happened in the BFG.
There is kind of, if I'm remembering correctly, some places where that would work, though.
Yeah.
So.
And yeah, he'll find a way.
Did people criticize that for Tintin, though? I feel like I saw a criticism.
I honestly didn't mind that.
Yeah, I guess it just wasn't. I don't know. I thought it was. I really liked Tintin though.
Yeah.
But I haven't read the comics for Tintin.
He'll stage a cool chase, but he'll make it fit within the context there.
Yeah.
He's saying like, oh, okay, well there should be a chase here. Well, let's make it a really cool chase. Let's make it where all this crazy stuff happens. It's kind of like a Rube Goldberg type thing with motorcycles and bazookas. Let's do fun stuff with it.
And I mean, honestly, most of Ready Player One takes place in like a digital space.
Yeah.
Virtual reality.
And actually, I'm glad that he's kind of taken more of that action-oriented angle because if they were to try to make it more like, more realistic VR, it would be really boring. Like, seriously, if you want to see an accurate version of VR, there's this anime called Dot Hack Sign.
I still haven't gotten around to reading the manga we picked up.
In which, I'm sure, like, well, you have a different version. I think it's like Dot Hack... a different Dot Hack. There's a couple different Dot Hacks, but the Dot Hack sign...
maybe.
Well, the Dot Hack sign, which is the first anime I saw, is it's about a digital world in which there's a problem there, but most of the anime is just characters in this fantasy world sitting around talking about the world, as opposed to doing anything in it. So I like the fact that...
I mean, and they could probably... They could make a really boring Ready Player One easily too, because there are parts where one of the places he goes is just basically a high school planet.
Yep.
Where it's just you walk around and there's high schools and there's trees and stuff and that's it.
Yep.
Which is probably the most boring thing ever, right?
And that's why you hand it over to Spielberg. He'll find a way to make it fun. He will find some way.
Don't go to high school planet. It's boring.
Yeah. But he'll find a way to make it work.
Sensei?
He'll find a way to make it work. And especially because, like, when we were watching Wrinkle in Time, they had a whole bunch of IMAX previews for it. It's the big IMAX. They got to show everything.
IMAX makes me so nauseous, but continue.
And they showed that scene from Ready Player One where... Well, first they showed the trailer, and then they showed most of the sequence of the car race they have, in which all those cars start booming around the city and start crashing into everything. And it's like it looks fun.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like it's just going to be a slog.
It could, yeah. And it could... Oh, for Ready Player One, there's a high school planet. There's a planet of just schools that you can virtual reality go to.
Oh, and you know what he's got to do?
What?
He's got to do 80s high school.
Yeah.
Because
everything's got to be 80s.
Because they say in the trailer, it's like, I wish I grew up in the 80s. So it's like, oh, here they come. Here comes all the Spielberg references. And I gotta say, like, watching all those trailers, it's hard not to geek out over that when you start seeing the Iron Giant and the RX-78 Gundam pop up on screen. You're like, oh my god, this is a Spielberg film, and there's a Gundam in it. Yes. Oh god, I don't know how I'm gonna last.
I won't see it in theaters with you because I'm worried that I'll be disappointed like I was when I saw Murder on the Orient Express.
Sure.
But I'll see it eventually.
Yeah. I'm psyched. I mean, like Spielberg rarely lets me down, so
Yeah, no, Spielberg's really good.
So if anyone can make that type of material work, it's Spielberg. So
Yeah.
that's up. Another film like I'll mention this month is like I think I'm gonna be reviewing next week is Tomb Raider, and I'm kind of on the fence.
Another version of Tomb Raider.
I'm kind of on the fence because a lot of people are saying like, oh, this Tomb Raider will be great because it's taking the source material seriously. It's
There are
like
very few directors I actually know, Sensei. Mark knows them all though because that's his deal.
well, if
Apparently, Nope didn't exist in the 80s. It's okay, Nope.
Then you'll love this film.
I only barely existed in the 80s.
You'll love this film.
Barely, just a touch.
It's about a kid who wasn't born in the 80s and wanted to.
Yeah. Mark was born a little earlier in the 80s than me, so he has more... I barely remember the 80s. I remember the early 90s.
I bought a He-Man toy. That's how deep in the 80s I was. So.
Yeah. Well... He-Man had a remake in the 2000s too, though.
Yeah, but not that version.
But
The
sucked,
original.
Though, so. Why the source material of Tomb Raider? Oh no, we were talking about Ready Player One.
Yeah.
And then he started talking about Tomb Raider.
Well, yeah.
And I think I did play Tomb Raider once, but it was in the 90s.
Yeah.
On someone who lived in my dad's basement computer. So.
Yep.
Very briefly.
And do you remember the plot from that game?
Is there a plot?
No.
I thought it was just,
You find a tomb, you open it, get treasure.
Yeah.
That's about it. So
shoot things. I can't remember.
So it's pretty much just like.
I just remember walking around a hallway or something.
Yeah, because it's pretty much just like goofy Indiana Jones shit. And a lot of people criticize the Angelina Jolie version because it was being goofy. It's
What's the source of Tomb Raider? It was a video game in the 90s.
In the 90s.
And forward. There were more versions. They keep making more versions.
Well, the latest... Well, this film is apparently going to be based on the last iteration where they tried to make...
The last iteration of the game or the last Angelina Jolie movie?
The last video game.
Okay.
Because the last video game they did of Tomb Raider, they tried to make it more gritty and more violent and more...
I just heard that she cried more.
Probably. Well, yeah, because like they want to try to force more of a story in there.
Yeah.
Which, okay, fine, but essentially it's going to be like a treasure hunting story. So by that logic, it could work on there. I'm just saying, don't go in there expecting a really, kind of like deep and serious lore type thing.
Video game movies just don't tend to work out very well. So
they can if they realize.
I mean, Resident Evil went on forever, but not as a good movie series.
I think they can if they realize how goofy they are.
Yeah,
because that's
maybe because like when you're playing a game, you don't really care about the story that much.
No.
You want to play a game.
That's why I love the Mortal Kombat movies so much, because when they went into that, they realized, look, this is goofy as hell.
Yeah.
So let's have fun with it. I mean, we'll still put in all the characters, we'll still put in all the lore and all that, but we're not really going to take it seriously. Because you shouldn't when you got a four-armed character called Goro trying to fight people and that's essentially a puppet. Like, you got to have fun with that. That's too goofy to take seriously.
Maybe it's my sense of humor, but I really prefer when things don't take themselves too seriously. Like, I loved the G.I. Joe film for that reason. Yeah. Because I feel like it wasn't taking itself too seriously.
Well, I felt like
Autumn, since I like story games, I liked Doki Doki Literature Club. That was a novel, Yeah. But it had that twist. But generally, when I play video games, I prefer to actually play a game. I do like Tex Murphy, and that's FMV. You kind of watching movies in there too. So
there's kind of
there's some games where I prefer to be playing the game, and there's some things where the story's interesting, but I don't really want to watch a movie of it. Yeah. I don't know.
Honestly, I think a good balance of that is like a Hotline Miami 2. Because there was a game that was violent, it had cool gameplay mechanics, it required a lot of creativity, but it also has this kind of story that jumps around different parts of the year with different characters, and the people who were on it were saying like they were inspired by stuff like David Lynch and stuff.
Yeah. It's so Tex Murphy there's a lot of movie clips and stuff in it, but I don't want to watch a movie of Tex Murphy.
No.
Yeah,
it's more fun to believe you're that kind of corny actor as opposed to just watching the corny actor.
Exactly.
That's what made it more. That's why people played Wing Commander. It's like we don't really want to watch a story with Mark Hamill and Malcolm McDowell on there because they're not the best actors, but it's fun to play a game where you kind of have to interact with them.
Yeah.
So.
Autumn Sensei is talking about that there's talk of a Last of Us movie, and it's just that it's not my cup of tea. I've seen things about that game, and it just looks incredibly dull to me. If that's your thing,
they're gonna have to.
If it works out, I guess
it could work, but they're gonna have to be careful because you gotta understand when you're going into movie territory, they're gonna start comparing it to the likes of like The Road, and other like post-apocalyptic films. So that's the other thing to realize. Like you don't want to fall into that cliche. Like The Last of Us is fun to play. Yeah. Because it's like
mixing it up with a different game. But now that I think about it, the game looks fun. Yes, that game does look fun. I was getting mixed up with Last of Us, not second Uncharted. She says. I don't.
The Uncharted game.
I don't know your gender.
Actually, it's interesting because when they were showing the trailer for Tomb Raider, the IMAX, there was a kid next to me saying like, "That looks a lot like Uncharted."
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was like, "Doesn't that look like Uncharted?"
Full disclosure, have not played either of these games.
They're adventure games.
I don't know. I was mixing up The Last of Us with this other game, but I can't remember the name of that game now. But that one was one where you didn't actually really play the game so much as it was a story. So that's why I'm like, that wasn't my cup of tea. But I think the Last of Us Uncharted or whichever one it was more interesting. What were you saying?
Well, I think you might be thinking of like the Walking Dead Telltale games.
Nope.
Is that it? No, not?
Nope.
Okay. Because Telltale games are very...
kind of game.
Yeah. Telltale games are very much like non-gameplay. It's just like, press button, make this decision, and then maybe struggle and shoot someone once or twice. So.
No, it was one where you just walk around a house or some shit that I was listening to a review of, because sometimes I like to listen to reviews of people shitting on things.
You just walk around a house. Is that Going Home or something like that?
Yeah, probably.
Is that, yeah. Yeah, Last of Us is the
Is there something about lesbians in that one?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
that's the one.
Last of Us is the zombie survival game where you're trying to protect the girl. So,
yeah, after you started talking about it, then it clicked with me. I don't know why I'm mixing this stuff up, but that makes way more sense. Way more sense.
Yeah.
So,
and like I said, it can work.
I still don't really want to watch a movie of that, though.
Well, it can work if they do something new with it. So like I'm saying, like, you can't just rely on what was in the game because
the plots don't work.
Well, the plot can work, but then the plot will kind of be more derivative.
Yeah.
Because like
that too.
But the thing is, like, for a lot of gamers, that's kind of not an issue because most of them just say, like, I want to see the game directly up on the screen, which I don't know why you'd want to because that seems boring because you already saw the story in there.
I don't know. Well, I played Silent Hill and Silent Hill 3 and mostly Silent Hill 3.
Mm-hmm.
And that movie really fell flat, but they changed the characters a lot in that too, in a way that I didn't like.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, is you got to worry about how these productions go about, because when that director came on to Silent Hill, he said, like, yeah, that first film, it was garbage. Don't worry, guys. We're going to make the film all the fans want. We're going to do exactly what you want.
Except I liked the first film.
Yeah, none of it.
I mean, I didn't understand. I thought parts of the first film were stupid, but I liked the first film.
It was stupid, but it was coming from
you had a weapon, and you immediately dropped it. What is wrong with you, woman?
It was stupid, but you could tell it was coming from a good place. And like, again, that film too was also burdened with production issues, because initially in the beginning script, Sean Bean wasn't even in the film.
Well, so in the game, it's the dad that's doing all this.
Yeah.
There's no mom.
Yeah,
anymore.
but
Anyway.
the original script they handed in was just going to be the mom going through Silent Hill, which you think
Yeah.
that's enough of a story. But the
Yeah.
whole Sean Bean investigating thing and then kind of winding up nowhere at the end is just kind of like, this didn't need to be here. And sure enough, it didn't need to be there. They added
Yeah,
that in
It didn't need to be there.
because the executives thought, oh, there's no dudes. Let's throw a dude in there. It's like, okay, I
It
guess.
seems kind of backwards almost, because usually it's the other way around, isn't it? I don't know.
Well, you got it. I think it's like Sony. So Sony's kind of a little bit backwards.
Sony's got problems.
But you could
What the
tell,
fuck, Sony?
and that's the difference. There's a difference between like what the production does with executives and what the director. Because the director, he wanted to do this film. Like he even spent his own money to make a test reel to show to the game developers.
The
first film.
Okay.
Like he sent that in to the game developers in the studio saying like, please let me do this film. And then he even when he was making the film, he even had the game on set to say like, look, I want it to look like this, and even brought out the music composer. Like he really wanted to make that film work.
There are parts of that film I really enjoyed, though.
There are little bits and pieces. There's some creepy stuff in there that's pretty effective.
Yeah,
So.
and the third one though.
That's
They really wanted to stick to the game, but they completely changed one or two of the characters.
yeah,
Like, what are you doing?
and that's the director being too ambitious, saying I'm gonna put in all this stuff and maybe it'll work. Like, because at one point he took a poll saying like, who should play the lead, and everyone was saying like,
Well, the girl they got does look a lot like her, but they changed Vincent into some kind of love interest, and I'm like, what are you doing?
well, I think when they held the poll, the top leader at that point was Ellen Page, and instead they just ended up going with this actress who had only had like a few tiny roles. Like she'd
They
been like,
couldn't afford Ellen Page.
that's exactly it. He said like, yeah, well, who should we cast? Like, oh, that's great, but we're gonna cast someone we can afford. So, so forget that poll. Here's a woman who had a small part in Wolverine Origins. So here you go. That's
Here's someone you've never heard of.
so your vote meant nothing.
Why even have the vote?
Even the director, when he finally got done with that, was like, yeah, I'm sorry, it was trash. I'm sorry.
It was not good. It
No.
was better than the sequel to House on Haunted Hill. Or, no, wait. Not House on Haunted Hill. Maybe House on Haunted. What's the one that the original one had Vincent Price in?
House on Haunted Hill, yeah.
Oh, yeah. House on Haunted Hill. Do you remember that sequel?
Yes, I
It was
do.
bad.
Yeah, I remember it.
It was bad.
So I was direct to video.
Yeah, it was. I should have known better.
No,
I just really liked the first one.
you just really like it. You want to give it a shot. But I mean, there's less excuses now for these video game movies to say that, oh, it's a problem with production. Because it used to be, because they used to be right. Yeah, they were handed over to production companies who had no idea what they were doing. But now they're all being helmed by the same video game studio. So now there's kind of like very little excuses now. Because now like the video game studio is working directly on making the film. And then they're still kind of turning out like crap. So it's kind of like, what's your excuse now?
Autumn, which one are you referring to for as a sequel to?
He's thinking Silent Hill?
Silent Hill, House on Haunted Hill?
There's a whole bunch of Haunted Hill remakes and sequels, aren't there?
Well, yeah, the one I really like is a remake, actually.
Yeah,
the original one with Vincent Price in it was only okay, I thought. It was probably really scary for the time, though.
You don't think I'm scary enough?
Well, that's the one where they floated when they actually showed it in theaters, they floated the skeleton down.
Across there, yeah.
Yeah, there's a direct-to-video sequel to the remake of House on Haunted Hill.
Yeah, Return.
And it's garbage.
Return to the House on Haunted Hill.
And it's nonsensical.
Yeah.
So, and they don't set up the characters very well or anything.
No, it's clear
so you don't feel anything when they die.
Well, it's clear it's one of those films
where
they want to get to the kills quickly.
Yeah.
Don't want to waste much time.
It's just, yeah. It doesn't have anywhere. It's not nearly as interesting as the first one was. So.
Yeah. So of the April films, those are the ones I'm looking forward to. I mean, in terms of the rest of the summer, Infinity War could be fun. It's a toss up. I mean, it's a big gamble, but it's from the Russo brothers who directed Winter Soldier and Civil War, which, as far as I'm concerned, those are like the best Marvel films at this point. So
you know what I'm looking forward to?
What are you looking forward to?
March 30th on Netflix. Series Unfortunate Events. Season 2.
The Neil Patrick Harris.
And I'm probably going to have to watch it like a bunch of times because our kid likes it and she's reading the books. So, or rather, we're reading the books.
Yeah.
But in a way that you only half know what's going on.
I gotta check the release dates on some of this stuff because they're moving stuff around. Because like Infinity Wars got moved around, and then
I heard it got moved to April 27th.
Yeah, it moved up to April, and then I think Rampage got another video game movie got moved downward. I think so.
Rampage. They made a movie out of Rampage.
Yes.
It's just a movie where you go like as monsters and destroy things.
Yes, and that's in the trailer. That's actually the one video game movie I'm looking forward to because it looks ridiculous.
Your eyes are all aglow.
It looks so goddamn ridiculous, like a crazy King Kong film, and that's exactly what a Rampage film should be.
Winter Soldier wasn't back? What?
Winter Soldier wasn't bad?
Oh, maybe that's what you mean. Yeah. Yeah. You like Series Unfortunate Events? Yeah, well, see, the movie I wanted to like, but the problem with the Series Unfortunate Events movie is they took the ending of the first book and shoved it at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
They let Jim Carrey make Connelloff too likable. Mm-hmm. And they didn't make the other characters unlikable enough. They didn't make them dumb enough.
Yeah,
basically. They made Mr. Poe too kind. They
were fearful of the macabre.
Yeah.
Essentially. So that was the downfall.
Is what it revels in, the series, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like saying like we're gonna adapt Harry Potter, but we're gonna try not to focus on death.
Yeah, we're gonna
hard.
We're gonna make Voldemort really goofy.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Olaf, don't get me wrong, he does some ridiculous things, but he does them very sinister.
Oh yeah.
You know, I mean, he puts on silly costumes, and you're like, how are people buying this? But he's threatening you with a large knife while he does it, and like, I mean, he's very threatening. He's very threatening, and I feel like the show shows more of his motivations, which I mean are never made 100% clear in the books. But it's pretty clear to me that this is some sort of revenge plot on his part.
Yeah.
But it irritates me that these kids just don't ask questions.
Yeah, that's the name of the game.
And I guess looking through that series in the lens of an adult and as a parent, all the characters are way dumber than the children are dumber.
Yeah.
Than when I was a kid. When I was a kid reading them, which I still was probably high school. It's the adults that seem dumb, but then as I've gotten older, I'm like, oh no, the kids are pretty stupid too. Yeah. So they're just snootier about it.
You see different things in there.
But well, you start to catch the message of, that no one is truly noble. True. Yeah. And no one is truly completely bad. It's it's kind of a mix because. Connelloff is clearly evil, but there's some other characters in there who the children consider to be noble. Yeah. That are actually doing some pretty terrible things. Yeah. And the children, as things go on, start to do terrible things as well.
Yeah, and I think it works better.
They just justify it to themselves.
And that, well, especially like the format works better as a series, just because of how repetitive it is. Because
yes, definitely. That's a complaint I've heard from people about it too, is that it's too repetitive. But I'm like, it kind of is trying to teach children vocabulary and stuff. So
yeah, that's what sucks about it, but that's what works for the show, and that's what the problem of trying to condense that into a film is. If you're trying to condense these 3 books, it just kind of looks more like vignettes than an actual story. Yeah. So, that's the big problem with that.
I have had to watch the movie several times, because not only did I watch it when I was younger, and I took my younger brother to it in theaters when I was younger. Yeah. But, I have a kid, and as I stated before, they tend to like to watch things on repeat. Yeah. And it's like,
just...
no more TV for tonight. No more TV, no TV today. You watched too much the other day. Or...
Gotta switch it up, you know?
Oh, I like the narration bits. Not so much in the movie. I like it in the show, though.
Yeah. Although I don't mind.
I'm surprised how much I like Patrick Warburton as Lemmy Snicket, actually.
Yeah. Although I don't mind hearing Jude Law's voice. I mean, I think he does fine in it, so...
Yeah, he did fine. It was just... I don't know. It's more amusing the way they do it in the show.
Yeah, well, he's more involved. He's kind of not so much the voiceover. He's kind of more the involved narrator. Yes. So that's and
which I mean he is in the book too.
Yeah, and I mean you kind of have to, you know, if you're gonna hire Patrick Warburton, you know, you don't just want the voice. You want like the presence of him in there.
Except for all those voice acting roles he does.
Well, even when he's doing that, he has kind of a presence with his tone there. And with
Brock Sampson at the very least.
Yeah, because he's got a lot more expression. But if he's just doing narration, it kind of says more when he's kind of delivering that type of tone when he's in the frame.
Narrations in the book, that's like half the book.
That's a lot of narration going over.
That's a lot of narration to skip. Although I don't blame you for when he starts going over the water cycle in the Grim Grotto. It'll be interesting how they cover the Grim Grotto in some of those later books, because things get pretty hairy. So
I don't know. I kind of dig it when he just kind of like veers off wildly from the story, because then it kind of feels they're kind of more like pillow shots in the story to say like look, okay, this is getting a little crazy. Let's veer off here and talk about something not very relatable to this at all.
Let's teach kids the water cycle.
Why not? Because I mean.
They are books that tell you to put them down.
Because honestly, some of these stories just get a little bit too crazy with like they spin their gears that you kind of do have to take a break from them at some point.
Like insane in these stories. I don't want to give things away, but the baby is pretty much a cartoon.
Yeah.
And so they pretty much turn her into a cartoon in the show.
Well, it's a baby that talks and does all this stuff. Obviously, it's fantastical in a cartoon.
I mean, so they don't do this in the adaptation, but in the book, she sword fights somebody with her teeth.
Yeah.
That's how
But that's par for the course.
The children work in a lumber mill that pays them in coupons and feeds them gum for lunch. I mean, that baby would be dead by the end of the first book, that baby would be dead.
Yeah, if you read after that and then like a sword fight thing's like, okay, this is going over the line. What book are you reading? Because they've clearly established, look, this is a ridiculous, fantastical world where crazy crap should not be happening, but does.
That doesn't take place in any specific time period, or even, it only kind of vaguely takes place in America, too. You know?
I think it takes...
Vaguely.
I think it takes place in a world where the Depression never ended.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I got from it.
It feels very Victorian in the books, and then they're like in the 60s or the 40s.
Yeah.
In the show, I can't tell.
Somewhere around there.
Somewhere in there.
Somewhere. So yeah, is there any other films I was looking forward to this year?
I don't know.
I'm trying to think.
Deadpool 2, maybe?
Deadpool 2, yeah. Could be alright.
Actually, you said that you didn't feel that Deadpool would be one that you'd be able to rewatch, so we'll see what you feel about the second one.
Well, actually I said I'd be more interested in the second one because they're going to have Cable.
Yeah.
As the...
And you liked it when he was playing off the other characters more than when he was just talking to the camera.
Yeah, because whenever he's playing off Colossus, it's fun. And Cable is kind of, if you've read the comics, Cable's kind of like the straight man who's kind of always be like, Deadpool, and shake his fist at them. So if you glue him to Deadpool for the entire film, that will work. That I'd be really interested in seeing, and I think that might be better than the first film. So I'm definitely looking forward to that if they're doing it. So I think that's the big stuff. Oh, I kind of have a soft spot for Teen Titans Go to the Movies. So.
The trailer's funny.
It looks funny.
I think the show is funny. Say what you will. I know people are salty because originally the Teen Titans run was more serious, and then they made Teen Titans Go, and they boiled it down to just kind of quick, ridiculous Cartoon Network BS. But you know, kids like it, and you know, I think it's kind of fun too. Now, Powerpuff Girls, the other hand, I cringe so hard, and I won't let my kid watch it.
Yeah. Well,
So,
that one they're
what
trying
they've
too
done to
hard.
it. They've destroyed it.
That one they're trying too hard to be hip. Teen Titans, they're
Yeah.
actually trying to.
They're trying to be hip, but they're using dead memes from 10 years ago.
They're well, yeah. That's the thing. They're trying too hard to be hip there. At least with Teen Titans Go,
Yeah.
they're trying to be hip with the material.
They're trying to be fun too, I think.
Yeah.
It just feels fun.
They're trying to make characters who are likable enough,
Yeah.
and they're trying to make gags that are kind of well thought out, and they're trying to use the DC, large library of characters to have as much fun with them as they can. Like if you haven't seen it, go watch the trailer. They make
Wonder Woman!
They make great meta jokes about how people only care about Wonder Woman.
They're like, well, if Aquaman gets a movie.
They make a great joke on Chemo by poking a hole in his butt, making him fart. And so they're trying stuff. They're actually trying to have fun with the DC universe. It's essentially just going to be Lego Batman all over again, which I'm totally fine with.
Lego Batman was totally fun though. DC universe has been taking itself way too seriously.
So I'm all for that, man.
I mean, you don't need to be bland Marvel fun, but you should be at least fun some of the time.
Yeah.
Especially with how dark they made Superman. So
now by that
ruined the character of Superman to a degree.
By that same token, I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what Sony will do with their animated Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, they're making it animated.
Yep.
I've sworn off Sony though, if you recall.
Yeah, well, this will be a Sony Marvel.
Especially animated Sony.
I think this will be a Sony Marvel co-production. So we'll see.
Kind of giving up on Marvel.
Kind of giving up on Marvel too.
I feel like Disney's current, I don't know what age this is called, but their current run of good stuff is going to come crashing down. Just a sense.
Well, I think they're probably going to start changing their strategy right now because of saturation. I mean, this weekend
they're too much.
Well, this weekend they have like Black Panther is still #1. It's going to be #1 this weekend, and it's going up against another Disney film coming out at the same time. So they're really starting to bunch up on each other now.
Is that Solo or is that one? Because there's another Disney movie. They moved either Solo or Infinity Wars because they were too close together.
Oh, yeah, they moved I think they moved Infinity War to April because Solo is going to be on Memorial Day.
Yeah.
So, because I think originally Infinity
it's not smart to have them too close together.
No, so it's more just repositioning.
Autumn Sensei, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for watching, man.
Yeah.
So I think that's fine. So yeah, I'll just say
we're
like
about done.
Yeah. So Wrinkle in Time, 2 out of 5 stars, and then kids will dig it more. Adults will just kind of be like, yeah, I get the message already. Submission, I think, has some great acting in it. It's got some decent writing, but it feels like it's missing just a little bit of an extra push of either like a burst of rage or some eroticism. Just a little bit something more needs to push it over the edge.
Come see Stanley Tucci in a wig.
That's reason enough to see it, I guess. And of all those, like, Mute is definitely the one I would see. It's on Netflix right now. Duncan Jones is doing some great science fiction out there, and especially in this stage, like, seriously, if you haven't seen it, go out and see Annihilation, man. Alex Garland is doing great stuff with science fiction.
I've heard good things about Annihilation.
Oh, I love Annihilation so much.
It sounds like it's very underrated almost at this point.
Oh, entirely. Let me tell you, when people see this on home video, they're gonna kick themselves so hard for not seeing this in the theater, because that ending.
From what it sounded like is that they put it on Netflix in Europe and in theaters here, but in Europe they wanted it in theaters, and in here we want it on Netflix. Yeah,
and you know why that is? It's only because Garland fought for it. Because when he first showed them the cut to Paramount, they said, we gotta trim this down or re-edit or something because it's too. People are gonna think it's too intellectual and they're not gonna understand it. And he said, "No, I'm sticking with this. I'm not gonna dumb it down."
It's interesting because I think it was it Red Letter Media I was listening to probably.
They did
Half
review
in the Bag, where they were talking about it has all those things everybody says that they want.
Yeah.
It's mostly women.
Mm-hmm.
It's very intellectual. It has, you know, a decent plot, but I think they had some criticisms about Natalie Portman's acting, but maybe that's a personal peeve of theirs. I don't know.
It might be. I mean, she's had to work her way up from a lot, and I think she's come a long way. Especially like if you've seen her work in like Jackie, and then coming on to this, she's going up. So I'm looking forward to more.
I don't think I saw Jackie, at least not all the way through. I mean, but I saw her as a child actor in The Professional, Leon the Professional.
Yep.
And, I mean, obviously Star Wars, although I refuse to watch any more Star Wars movies.
She's come a long way. So I'll say that. But yeah, that trippy ending is something you need to see in the theater, man, because it melts your brain.
It
it's
sounds
that
like
good.
it's a good movie.
So yeah, you got that. You got Denise Villeneuve. It's a good time for genre pictures, especially since Shape of Water won the Oscar. So I'm really happy for sci-fi and horror right now.
I'm sorry, I just...
What? What, The Shape of Water?
You know that comic I showed you in regards to The Shape of Water?
Yeah.
My dad never responded to that screen cap I took of it and sent to him. So.
All right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. We'll be back next week with a review of Tomb Raider. So thanks for watching. Have a good night, everybody.
Let's raid some tombs.
Let's raid some tombs.